Hi, I'm Rachel and welcome back to my channel Bales1986SW. Now today's tag isn't really Slimming World related, however I as a woman think this is an amazing tag and I think we need to spread awareness. That is the tag called Smear Without Fear. There is another hashtag which is Smear Without Fear SW, and what the lovely Kate SW, her channel will be linked down below, is trying to do is trying to raise awareness for smears. She has been through the most horrific time at the moment, and there's a light at the end of the tunnel, but like Kate says, most of her problems she was going through could have been solved a lot earlier if you'd gone for a smear test. So what she's asking us to do on the Slimming World community is, if my channel of 800 people could even get 2 people just to go for their smear test, then that's amazing, and to spread the awareness of how important it is with smear tests. Now she's asked in this tag if we can talk about smear tests, any moments we've had, what's my experience, etc, etc, and then tag 3 people to then spread the awareness further. So I will start it right at the beginning and I will go through through how I have smears and things like that. Now, at 17 I was having, this is going to be a lot of TMI, so if this is not for you, then I suggest that you click off. I think you should watch it if you are. It's an important message, but there will be a lot of TMI information in this, so just to warn you. At 17 I had 15 I had really heavy periods, and I don't just mean like heavy, I mean they would go through to my clothes. I was at netball at the time. It was really, honestly, it was making my life hell. And it weren't just the period I was on, it was the week before, the week after. I was like having a week's grace in my periods, and they were really affecting me. So I went to the doctors and the doctor said, we could put you on a pill. So they put me on a pill, and at 16 they put me on this pill, and this was just because of my periods. It wasn't to do with, like, at 16, at that time of my life, it wasn't to do with sex or anything to do with that. All I wanted was my periods to reduce. And because I was having lots blood loss, I became anemic, so I was on iron tablets and everything like that. However, at 17 this pill had worked and reduced my periods lovely, and then for a year. And then at 17 I had the most horrendous pain in my left side, and it just wouldn't go away. So we went to the doctors, I had blood tests, everything's fine. And then my lovely grandma said, enough's enough, we'll pay private. And I was fortunate that my grandma did pay private. So my grandma goes, we'll pay private. So I went to a private clinic, I had a scan, and I had an internal scan as well. And they diagnosed me then at I was nearly 18 by the time this happened, with polycystic ovaries. So yeah, at 18, it completely made sense of all my issues I was going through. And I had swabs and everything like that, and it was fine. So I've always had problems with periods and everything like that. Smear tests. So at 18 I had that diagnosed, and then with PCOS you can have a very hard time conceiving, because I had lots of cysts. I had one big cyst on my left ovary, and I've had it drained 3 times. The biggest it went to was 14.7 centimetres, and it was horrendous. The pain was horrendous. Most people with PCOS don't even have any problems with it like that, but it was really affecting me. So I had it drained. I've had it drained 3 times. And so yes, so that was between 21, but because they'd scarred my left side of my ovaries is really badly scarred, the chances of me becoming pregnant were going to be very slim. So me and my fiance at the time decided that we would try, and if we clicked on or whatever, we would see what it was. They say about until 25 years old to have, with what I had, they said looking about 25 I would have a child if that's how I felt. So the clock was ticking, let's say that. So at 20, I just turned 23 in 2008, if I got the maths right, yeah. And in May, I did a pregnancy test and it came back that I was positive. I was pregnant. I was 9 weeks pregnant on my wedding day. Came as a massive surprise. Max came early. And yeah, so Max came early, had Max, then I had a miscarriage, and then I had my last child, which was Grace. So by the time I'd had Grace, I was at one of my, not my heavier side, but I was getting heavier. I was probably a size 20. I couldn't tell you how much I weighed, but I was a size 20, 18, 20 when I had Grace. And obviously when you're pregnant, you can't go for smears and everything like that. And I knew that this letter had come through to say, you need a smear test. And obviously I knew that I was pregnant, so couldn't have it. Had a cesarean section with both my children because Max came 6 weeks early, Grace came 7 weeks early because I had preeclampsia and cholestasis. Anyway, having 2 children, there's 2 years between my children. That letter got, oh, I'll make that another time. I'll sort that out, don't worry. And the letter never came out of that drawer. And it was only this year that that letter came out that drawer. And my daughter is 7 years old. And why it never came out of that drawer is because I didn't like the way I looked. I didn't have any confidence. I didn't want to lay on a bed, being a size, I was at the current time, last year in September, I was my highest weight ever. I was nearly 17 stone. There was no way I was laying on a doctor's bed with my legs akimbo. There's just no way I could do it. How silly of me that I left this 7 years, because and knowing that I have polycystic ovaries, I've got problems down below, I never went. So could you imagine how I felt when how do you think I actually felt when I went in January of this year? And I was probably a size 16, but I was more confident. I told my friends I'd not been for a smear for 7 years. They were like absolutely flabbergasted, and they said, come on, let's do it, it's important. And what made me really go is when my best friend said, if you don't go and it becomes the worst kind of news and you've left it this long, well, look what you're leaving behind. You're leaving 2 children, and you could have solved this. Like, you could have done this. And I was like, yeah, that was like the thing. Like, what would I be leaving behind? A simple smear test. Yes, it's going to be uncomfortable. Yes, it's a little bit embarrassing. I'm not even going to lie about it. But what could I have stopped? So in January, I went. My best friend was outside, it's moral support, and I went into that room. They scraped, they got the cells, and I went off, and they said they would contact me, there would be a letter in the post. However, so many weeks later, I got a phone call. I picked up that phone, and it says, unfortunately, I won't say my last name then, unfortunately, Rachel, we've not collected enough cells. We need to do another smear test. I was frightened. Why haven't they collected enough cells? Why is that something wrong? No, sometimes they don't collect enough cells to do a correct procedure, so I had to go back in after. You have to wait for so long from your last smear test to your next smear test to have another procedure. I waited that period of time. I went in, did it again, and then I got a letter to say that everything was clear. The relief from that was amazing. And now I will go every 3 years, they say, to have my smear test. And when that letter comes in 3 years' time, it will not be put in a drawer. It will be, soon as that letter comes, I will ring up and make that appointment, because it's a simple procedure. It's relatively painless. Yes, it's embarrassing, but it's something which could save my life. It means that I can be with my children and see them grow up. It's so important. So I highly recommend that if you've got a letter in one of your drawers what says you need to make a smear test, please get it out, ring it up and make an appointment, because it is so important, honestly. And I'm so glad I went. And yes, and I will be going every 3 years when that letter comes, because it can save my life and it's such a simple procedure. So I'm going to tag 3 people. I'm going to tag Trudy Beanie, I'm going to tag the Kath and Laura from the Budget Slimmers, and I'm going to tag Gemma's Journey. Please share this awareness, people. Talk about your stories, how you feel when you go for a smear test, etc. It's just about spreading the awareness. And the one thing that Kate said to do is to reapply your lipstick after you've talked about your experience, and you get your hand and you smear for there's no fear. You know what you get your hands and you go like that. So Kate, I did it. So please go for a smear test. It's so important. So take care. Sending positive thoughts, Rachel.